feed goes. I think that's enough of a play-in. We'll find out. But okay, I'm going to look directly into the viewers and listeners' souls right now and let them know what this bullshit that they're watching is and or listening to. Hi, I'm Trevor, and welcome to Catching Up on Cinema. If you aren't familiar with the program, Catching Up on Cinema is a film analysis podcast wherein we introduce each other to films, expand our cinematic horizons, and, in essence, catch up on our cinema. So it is the month of February 2023, and it's once again that very special time of the month wherein we do our very special Tales from the Shelf episode. And in joining me in this endeavor, I have my good buddy Brad from the Cinema Speak podcast. How's it going, Brad?
It's going great. We're live. We got to keep rolling with it, baby. We are talking Blu-rays, whether we stumble over our words or not. And Trevor, it's okay. I'm sure I will have many stumbles going forward, but it's still going to be a great episode.
Oh yeah, we're just a couple of stumble bums here. Obviously, we both have a lot of movies to talk about. So, dear listener and hopefully viewer, if you're not familiar with the format, essentially what we're going to be doing here on our very special Tales from the Shelf episode is we are going to be talking about our respective film collections. So that would be DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4K discs. And as is customary, we have a theme for this month's episode. And our theme for February 2023 is Glorious Grayscale. So Brad actually is the schmo that's responsible for selecting the theme this month. And essentially what we're going to be doing today is talking about movies from our collections that are in black and white. So grayscale, in other words. I actually have very few titles to talk about, so more than likely I'm actually going to be showing off literally every black and white film I have in my possession. But also, as is customary, I will do my hosting duty here today and promptly throw Brad directly under the bus and ask, hey, Brad, how about you share your first pick for this month?
Yeah. I will say I don't have like a ton of black and white movies either, unfortunately. You know, when you kind of like think, okay, let me look at all the ones I have, it's kind of like, oh man, I really need to, you know, get more movies pre 1960s, but you know, I still have a decent amount. And I'm going to go for my first one. We're going to talk about the cock of the walk, Alfred Hitchcock, old Hitchy with Strangers on a Train. Strangers on a Train, which despite the cover of this Blu-ray, it is black and white, as you can see there. They get you. They a little bit of a marketing tactic there. People that don't watch black and white, then maybe they won't look at the back. But this is a film that I watched for the first time a couple years ago, and I enjoyed it. I mean, it is an Alfred Hitchcock movie, so it's, you know, nothing too surprising there. I went back and apparently I only gave this a 3.5. I don't know what issues I had with it because in my memory, I really remember liking it. So the premise is two guys meet, two strangers on a train. And you would think this would be a train movie, and it's really not. It's just they meet on a train, and that's basically the extent of the train. And they kind of start talking, and the one stranger, the guy who's not our lead, comes up with this idea. He says, "You know what? I bet you that we could each kill somebody in each other's lives, and no one would know. Like I could kill the boss, I could kill your boss that you hate. You could kill my ex-wife who I hate, and they would never be able to catch us because there's be nothing tying us to the crime. The only way we know each other is we were two strangers on a train." And the our lead is like, "Oh yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. You know, you could kill somebody I know in a good way with it." And then he gets off the train and whatever, and he's like, "Oh, that was a weird conversation, funny guy." But then turns out the stranger goes through with it and kills somebody that this guy knows. And then our lead is like, "Hey, nah, I didn't agree to do this. Whoa, what's going on here?" So then the stranger starts following him, and it kind of turns into like a stalker film, I guess. For a subgenre to put it into, where this stranger keeps following him saying, "You gonna kill somebody? You gonna kill that guy yet?" But it's good. There's some good tension in there. It's a great premise, and the ending climax takes place on runaway carousel, like a extremely sped up carousel, which is I don't maybe I didn't like maybe that's something I didn't like the first time, but in my mind I really like that ending. So who knows? But solid Hitchcock movie, definitely not one of my favorites, but really really well directed and a great premise.
Oh yeah, no. I actually saw that one for the first time just a few years ago as well. I was staying at my friend's apartment in Washington D.C. And his fiance at the time, I was there for their wedding. His fiance, she insisted we watch some Hitchcock. She loves Hitchcock. Like that's like
Cool.
her arena is old classics, in particular like Hitchcockian thrillers and whatnot. And yeah, she sat me down and made me watch that. Along with some of the Stanley Cup, but first things first, though, we got to get
This
some
guy,
Hitchcock.
he better lock that girl down. Oh, this
Oh,
she
he
sounds yeah.
did. Yeah, they got a baby now. They're
Wow,
doing just great.
nice.
Yeah.
Hitchcock and hockey? Come on now. What? Let's go.
Lock it down. Doing it right. But yeah, the one that she picked was Strangers on a Train, and I had a funny story going into that one because a movie that I watched many times when I was pretty young, like when I was middle school age, so like 12, 13. My dad he like oversold it to me. Maybe not oversold it, but like he made a big deal out of it. Was Throw Mama from the Train, the Danny DeVito and Billy Crystal, and I don't
Yeah.
remember the woman's name, but the cranky old bat from the Goonies. With the face and that voice.
Mhm.
Throw Mama from the Train was a comedy, a pitch black comedy, mind you, that I watched a lot on VHS when I was a kid. So I knew that movie really, really well. And actually, Strangers on a Train is directly referenced in that movie.
Okay.
Criss Cross, Criss Cross was your wife, my father, Criss Cross. like they call back to it many times, and the finale of the movie takes place on a train and all that motives and alibis. That's what the whole premise is about. But when I finally got around to actually seeing, the source material, The Strangers on a Train, man, it's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
It's very campy at times. The villain in particular is coded by Hollywood standards of the day. Um, is that the one with the tennis match towards the end as well?
Yes. That is one of my yes, I'm so glad you reminded me. That is the best part of the movie when, I don't know if it's the one at the end, but there's a point because the main character is a tennis, uh, professional where he's at a tennis match. I think he's, like, watching a match, he's spectating, and we have this shot of the crowd watching the tennis match, so they're, all going back and forth following the ball, but then the stalker guy, the villain, is not following the ball. He's the one face in the crowd that is looking directly across the arena at our main character and just staring at him. Such a great like visual idea. I love that's my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, that really was some very solid filmmaking. That was really incredible, actually. I don't remember precisely the context, but I also remember there was a lot of tension surrounding the progression of the outcome of that tennis game.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, just a really awesome set piece, and you know how I am about set pieces. I love when a movie just stops for a few minutes to just let a scene play out to the fullest and just wring all the tension and all the action out of something. And I actually didn't know it at the time when I got to the carousel finale, but my friend's wife actually explained to me. She was like, "Oh yeah, this is like a thing in Hitchcock. Like the movie literally explodes. Like she was like, yeah, this is kind of normal actually. Like it seems a little over the top, but she's like, no, he loves blowing up his movies, or
Hmm.
it's kind of like the end of what the Disney Hercules movie, where just like the plot gets wrapped up in a big old cyclone and thrown into the cosmos. It's like, did that make any sense to anyone? It's like, no, but it's over, isn't it? I mean,
Hmm.
maybe it is like a play on like Deus Ex Machina or something, where it's just like the movie's so broken at this point that it's like we have no choice but to shut down the production. It's like the story's over, everything's gone, everything's blown up. But great pick, Brad. I hadn't really had an opportunity to come back to that one or even talk to anyone about that one since I saw it, but shit, kind of makes me want to go back and rewatch it because that was a great watch for me.
Yeah, I feel like, it's a memorable title, but I feel like besides the title, a little bit of an underrated Hitchcock movie. Not, like, super underrated, but definitely I don't think most people would put it in A tier or maybe even B tier, like, so but I think it definitely is, like all his movies, worth watching for sure.
Yeah, no, I really need to take some time to actually explore the depths of his filmography because he is a highly highly regarded filmmaker that has like hit after hit after hit, and I am just barely skimming the surface when it comes to like films of his I've seen, even even though I know many of them by reputation. So as far as like directors that I ought to take the time to do a deep dive on, he's probably near the top of the list, honestly. But yeah, great pick, Brad.
Thank you.
Okay, so I suppose the pick is to me, and while I don't have anything that is like a one to one like compliment to Strangers on a Train, I'll start off, I guess, with a movie that's legitimately good, or at least a pair of them. That's not always the case when it comes to Trevor picks. I own a lot of crap. I'll just put it that way. But I have here the Criterion Collection 2-pack of Yojimbo and Sanjuro from director Akira Kurosawa. These are both starring Toshiro Mifune, and they're both well. Yojimbo is a like an out and out classic. It made an immense contribution to the world of cinema. It's been referenced and parodied countless times. Sanjuro is probably not as well known, but it is a direct sequel. It does feature the same main character. Uh, I think he's going by a different name, but it's supposed to be the same character. But it is an actual sequel to Yojimbo, and as such, it's collected in a 2 box here. I think you can get both of these in individual packs as well. But I figured, why not? I'll just get both of them. I had seen Yojimbo prior to purchasing this box set, but I had not seen Sanjuro. So that was something I was really looking forward to. And actually, it's a lot of fun. Um, I think fun is probably the operative word because both films have a very entertaining, somewhat light atmosphere to them, but Sanjuro like takes it like a half step further, where it's slightly goofier, slightly more fun film. But that's punctuated with some extreme violence at like somewhat random intervals. I guess maybe it's just a reminder of the atmosphere of the day or something, or the fact that a lot of the stories is surrounding swordplay and stuff. It's like we probably should highlight the severity of that sort of thing at some point. But there's a there's a famous blood pump shot in a Sanjuro at the like it's a key moment in the story that the story goes they fucked up like the pressure or something on the blood pump, and it was so powerful like the actor had to like do everything in his power to not get knocked on his ass
Really?
because like the timing of the cut was so spot on. He's like, I better not fuck it up. Like I guess like the blood just went whoosh, and he was like
Nice, nice.
it's an iconic moment. It's kind of a, I mean, in like chambara or like samurai cinema parlance, I guess it would be kind of similar to like the quick draw sequence in a traditional western. It's the equivalent of that, but with a katana, and it's just. But between the two, I'd say both are excellent films in their own right. But Yojimbo clearly stands apart, not just between these two, but like in the genre, in like chambara cinema. There's a reason why it is so far reaching. Like from an international standpoint, it is a Japanese film, but it touched world cinema. And as I said, it's been remade, it's been referenced, it's been parodied countless times. I mean, for fuck's sake, they even had like a, was it the Last Man Standing movie with Bruce Willis? I never got around to seeing it, but it's like
I thought
I
you were
don't.
gonna say the Last Man Standing sitcom with Tim Allen did a parody episode, and I was like, I need to see
I
that.
mean, I would check that out. Tim Allen standing in for
I was like,
Toshiro
wow, I
Mifune.
would not have expected that. Wow.
Uh? Holy shit! I would watch the fuck out of that. But anyway, great ass movies. Not the first time I actually saw Toshiro Mifune. The first time for me was the Samurai trilogy from a different director. I forget his name off the top of my head, but it's not
Mhm.
Kurosawa. I own that one too, but those aren't in black and white, which is why we're not talking about them right now. But that was the first time I ever saw him, and forevermore. And I'm sure a lot of young men of a certain age, like when they're presented with this guy, especially if you have Japanese heritage, as I do, um, he speaks to you. It's just like, man, that guy is cool.
Yeah.
It's like he's just so effortlessly cool. Um, and what's more, as an actor, he has so much dimension to his performances. Like he can be completely pathetic, he can be a total clown, he can be manic and wild, he can be charming, he can do anything. I forget the exact quote, but like I think Kurosawa, like part of why he liked working with him is that he he made a reference to the number of feet of film required to express an emotion or express an action, and he was like, you could give him like 2 feet of film and he'll give you more than someone else would give you with 100. So basically he's very economical and precise in how he
Mhm.
expresses himself, and I would say that's very, very true. I actually have a documentary about him. I think it's just called Mifune, or it's like The Last Samurai or something. It's narrated by Keanu Reeves, which, if I'm being 100% honest, was not wise. Um, no, I mean, really, when you think about it, I love Keanu. I love so
Yeah,
much about Keanu, but his voice is not why you hire him, if I'm being honest. Although,
that's true.
maybe I take that back, because Toy Story 4, he probably was the best part of that. I didn't like that movie, but him as the Canadian stuntman, the I forget the name of the character. Like, he did do that pretty well. So maybe I should pull that back, especially considering you're not allowed. There's a lot of people on the internet you're not allowed to say bad things about.
Yeah. Watch out.
Adele, Rihanna, Beyonce. Maybe not as much Beyonce, but Adele, Rihanna, and Keanu.
The Rock and Ryan Reynolds are in there.
You
They get
can shit talk The Rock all you want. He's
Yeah, I guess The Rock.
bulletproof,
Yeah,
but people
yeah.
don't people won't defend him. He is bulletproof though. Like, you can never chip away at The Rock. Like, he's impermeable. He'll
Oh,
just take it.
Brendan Fraser, 100%.
Yeah, I would add
Yep.
him to the list at within the past decade or so. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
untouchable. You're not
Yep.
allowed to say anything bad about Brendan Fraser. Good call,
Yeah, yeah.
Pat.
Um, no, that's a great pick. I actually, um, you said you need to do a deeper dive on Hitchcock. I do need to do a deeper dive on Akira Kurosawa, and it's maybe even more embarrassing because I actually own, uh, not a ton, but I own some of his films that I just haven't gotten around to watching. I don't have those, and the reason is mostly because I mean, I've gotten over this a little bit, but having the 2 pack, I would have nightmares about where to file it under. I mean, I'd put it under Y because that's the first one, right? But then I also think, should I get both separately? Like you said, if they're both available separately, should I get both separately? So I've lost many nights of sleep. So I haven't picked that one up. Um, but I guess I won't do this as an official pick. But oh, I thought I grabbed that one. Maybe I did. I thought I grabbed Rashomon, but maybe I
Oh,
did not. Oh, there's. This was why I won't use this as an official pick, but I did. I have seen this one. I think I've only seen this in Seven Samurai, but another Akira Kurosawa classic, of course.
oh yeah, no, Josh Hollman is fantastic. I actually had to watch that for school. It's also, a movie that's been referenced and paid homage to countless times throughout film history. I mean, just the structure of that movie, you can name drop that film, and people that are familiar with it will know what you mean. Like if you have a film that's like Rashomon esque, people will know
Mhm.
what you mean by that. Where it's like, ah, it's a play on perspective kind of story.
It's
Um,
kinda built its own, like, subgenre almost,
very
you know?
much so, very much so. But yeah, fantastic director. I mean, Kyle and I, my regular co-host on Catching Up on Cinema, we actually talked about a long time ago that's like haven't bothered to do the research, but back in the day, when Criterion was not what it is today, there was almost that feeling that's like, is this was Janus Films and Criterion, was it like founded strictly for the purpose of obtaining distribution rights to his filmography?
Right.
Because really, like it was just inundated with Kurosawa films. So I wouldn't be surprised if he served as like the impetus for the creation of Criterion in some ways.
Yeah, and I believe, they did a box set for him as well. I don't know when it was. It might have been, like, even pre-Blu-ray era. Maybe it was during Blu-ray, but I do believe that they did put out an Akira Kurosawa, box set. It says AK 100, 25 films by Akira Kurosawa.
Oh
So I'm
wow,
guessing when he would have turned 100 maybe.
that
Uh,
sounds right.
so,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, of course, and this isn't a controversial opinion, fantastic director.
You're probably
From
not
what
aware
I've
of
seen.
this.
Yeah.
He's kind of a big deal. You probably didn't know that though. Guy with 500 movies behind him.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's my pick. Actually, now that I think about it, that does complement your pick pretty well in that they're both from noteworthy directors. So there's the connection. There's the revolution.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's enough from my pick. What do you have next, Brad?
Well, this movie, listen, I don't know how this might be a bad pick because I've only seen it once and I don't remember anything about it. But we're gonna try and go with this one. It is another film from the Criterion Collection, and I will say, you know, this is a kind of a good and bad thing, I guess, is that Criterion, they put out a lot of great older films, a lot of great black and white films. So going through my collection, a lot of my black and white stuff is Criterion. So there's might be a running theme there. But this movie is one that I've only seen one time again, and I probably was like just a little maybe too young. Like not that I didn't get it, but maybe I didn't appreciate it. And it's uh Ingmar Bergman's Wild Strawberries, which is a very, kind of, experiential, almost kind of like you're seeing a lot of things that aren't actually there. It's about a man who he goes somewhere, he travels somewhere, but it's almost like it's all a reflection on life and death and, him being in the twilight of his life and knowing that he's going to die soon. And I think I might have just been a little too young when I watched this. I think I watched this in college and I was like, I'm never gonna die. Look how young I am. Now we're getting close 10 years later, probably 10 years since I've seen this actually. So we're getting closer to that day that's coming. But no, I do remember incredible visuals, of course, and this is one I should revisit. And I've actually only seen this, and he did the Seventh Seal also, right? That's Bergman, I think.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have that one as well, but that's the cliche Bergman pick. I got to go with something. Come on, like come on. So this one, very good. And the reason I picked it up actually is because I think my very first Criterion was 12 Angry Men, and I bought that not really knowing much about the Criterion collection. And there was like, it was either like a Criterion trailer or it was like a bonus feature on that disc where you preview a bunch of different Criterion movies, or maybe I just watched their YouTube trailers. I can't remember, but I started going through somehow and watching all these Criterion trailers and stuff, and one of them was Wild Strawberries, and, the person that I was watching these with at the time, we were both kinda like, "Oh, that looks really good." Like, just like some of the visuals looked amazing. Very, kind of, surreal visuals, and so I kind of picked it up just for that reason alone. So it was one of my first Criterions that I owned, which it's probably not one of the go-to classic Criterion picks, but it is definitely a movie that I should revisit.
Yeah. I'm sorry to say, I actually don't believe I've ever seen an Ingmar Bergman film before. So I'm completely new to anything that's expressed here. But um, what exactly is the film about? Because it sounds like from a visual standpoint, it has quite a lot going for it. And if I'm being honest, sometimes that's more than enough to serve as a selling point for me. But you want to give us a plot rundown or something?
I mean, I'll just read the back of the. It's pretty short here, if
Yeah,
that
yeah,
works.
works for me.
It's kind of plotless, which is kind of why I was kind of having trouble remembering. But basically, it says traveling to accept an honorary degree. Professor Isaac Borg, played masterfully by veteran director Victor Sjarstrom, is forced to face his past, come to terms with his faults, and make peace with the inevitability of his approaching death. Through flashbacks and fantasies, dreams and nightmares, Wild Strawberries dramatizes one man's remarkable voyage of self-discovery. This richly humane masterpiece, full of iconic imagery, is a treasure from the golden age of art house cinema and one of the films that catapulted Ingmar Bergman to international acclaim. So it is kind of like very like surreal, dreamlike kind of thing. Just I think a lot of it is kind of him looking back at oh, maybe he had a daughter or something. Like there's flashbacks to his daughter, and he's having regrets, kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'd be really curious to look up a trailer for that, because I think Kyle does that too. Like he'll just like catch a glimpse of something that just like I'm pretty sure he did that with was it Tarkovsky's Stalker?
Mm, yep.
I'm pretty sure he just caught a glimpse of a couple of shots from that, and that was kind of it. He was like, I don't know what that is, but I need to know what it. I need to know what it is. So it sounds like maybe through that trailer you saw on whatever disc it was. Sounds like that was what caused you to remember it and seek it out down the road. Um,
Yeah.
did you say
And
12 Angry Men was your first Criterion pick?
I think so. I could be wrong, but it was definitely one of my first. But I think it was the first.
Yeah, for me, I think I mean I did have the RoboCop DVD
Oh yeah,
because
yeah.
at the time that was the only way on DVD anyway to get the uncut version of the film. Nowadays you can find it anywhere. It's just out there, but back in the day you had to pay primo bucks just to get that Criterion DVD that was fucking hard to find. I had to go to a Silver Platters for that piece of shit. I've never set foot in a Silver Platters aside for that. That and when I bought the CD soundtrack for the Jet Li classic, The One.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
those are
All
probably the
right.
only two things I ever bought at a Silver Platters. But beyond that, I think my first Criterion Blu-ray was Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
I was happy with it.
Yeah. I will say I might have to say debatable if 12 Angry Men was my first, because I actually think now that I'm thinking about it, my first was probably this one, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, the controversial Criterion in a regular Blu-ray case, um, which
The
is
fuck?
yeah, you haven't heard about this? This is
No.
yeah. I actually don't know what the deal is, why they released it. I guess just because it was such a high profile film, but it is an official Criterion release. It's just not in a regular Criterion case of any kind. And this might be despicable, but I do not file it with my other Criterions. It is the black sheep of the collection, the Criterion collection. It goes with all the other trash Blu-rays over here.
Well, as your buddy Matt would say, this is despicable to me. Um,
Yeah.
wow, I did not know about that. Who directed that one, by the way? I actually haven't seen Benjamin Button before.
David Fincher, actually.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah, yeah, it was his Oscar bait moment. Which I a lot of people hate on that movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I still think it's a good movie. But it does feel a little bit outside of David Fincher's sensibilities.
I mean, I'm sure you can find ways to tie it in with his oeuvre. I mean,
Mhm.
just given his penchant for kind of testing the limits of CGI, like 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 the de-aging technology, or in the case of the
Yeah.
Social Network, just like, oh, we're just gonna have two Army Hammers, one of which is going to be
Mhm.
manufactured a computer. Not a big deal.
Mhm.
It's like he loves doing that kind of stuff. He's almost like he's the David Blaine of cinema. He loves doing that up close street magic kind of shit, but with a fucking film. Uh,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
stretch, but try to bear with me.
I like that. I like that.
um, Shit, I don't think I have anything that can compliment an Ingmar Bergman pick.
Don't have any other
So
Swedish, filmmakers in that, pile over there?
do I look like I'm a Swedish film enthusiast? I got a bunch of fucking Japanese plastic robots up on my shelf. You fucking joking? Are you joking? Uh, yeah, I most certainly don't have anything that can measure up to that. So we're gonna do something completely different. I actually have one more Criterion pick, um, but I'll save it for a rainy day. 10 minutes from now. I'm going to cheat a little bit because it's my damn show and I can do that. I have two cheat picks among my stack. And this one's a funny one. This is mostly just an excuse to talk about the thing. It's like I have nothing really to say about the movie. It's more just like what it represents and what it is, I guess. So I have here in my hand a 4K disc from Warner Brothers of wow, his name's on the cover. Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Mm.
So this is the 4 hour extravaganza that the Twitter demanded. That the neckbeards on the internet, they won, Brad. And that's actually largely why I own this. Is not because I thought it was remarkable. Really, it's actually, I think, an improvement. It is over long. 4 hours is too goddamn long, but I do think it's a better film and a more cohesive film than the Joss Whedon version. Um, it's just fascinating to me the precedent of this is a movie that the internet willed into existence to some degree. Probably not 100% true, but it partially was financed by Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder. Giving in to fan demand, which is not a common thing in the world of cinema, especially on this scale.
Mhm.
But I guess it worked out pretty well because Warner Brothers and HBO, they needed their killer app for their killer app in the form of HBO Max, which was still fairly new at the time. Um, and the reason why this qualifies somewhat, this is a cheat pick for a glorious grayscale conversation, is because there is a a black and white cut of this movie. However, it does not exist on this disc.
Oh, really?
Yes, as far as I
Mm.
understand, it only exists digitally in streaming form via the HBO Max app.
That's right, I
So
do remember that now.
I'm gonna hold up a thingy for the camera here. So this is the insert, and it says, "Nobody steal that fucking code." By the way, I haven't used it. Zack Snyder's Justice League: Justice is Gray, only available on HBO Max.
Hmm.
So there does exist a black and white cut of this film, but for whatever the fuck reason, they decided not to include it in disc format, and I have to assume it was a simple economics kind of thing where this is already a multi-disc pack. I think there's 4 discs in this for the Blu-ray and the 4K. The movie is on 2 discs because
Mm.
it's so goddamn long.
Yeah.
Doing yet another printing of the movie in one of or both formats would warrant at least another 2 discs. And I imagine the money people probably looked at that and were like, "Fuck you, no way, man!" Like one where that cuts down on the number of people who will be willing to open their wallets to buy the thing, and two, manufacturing the thing that just drives up the cost ever so slightly as well. So it's a curious decision, but like I said, this is a cheat pick. I don't actually own the black and white version of the movie in physical format, but I don't think anybody does unless they pirated it and burnt it themselves or something. But um, what did you think of this one, Brad? Because you didn't do a full episode on this for the Cinema Speak podcast, did you?
I believe I think we did actually.
Oh wow.
We at least talked about it, but what did I think about it? I think I agree that it was better than the original version. I don't know. My memory is pretty fuzzy because I did the whole, I did the challenge. I watched the original cut and the Zack Snyder version in one weekend, so it was like, nearly 7 hours of Justice League content. I was pretty burnt out on everything Justice League. Um but I did appreciate some of the sequences were memorable. I liked that, it wasn't as jokey. But again, it's something that's like, it's hard to judge because it's like, yeah, this is like closer to Zack Snyder's version of what he wanted it to be. But it's also like this would have never come out in theaters like this. So it's kind of weird to compare it like, you know, but, I do agree that it's an interesting experiment, and I know you love collections of cuts, so I know you get off on it. And, I think it's a fair thing to say they did put it out on disc, but to say at least, if you want the Justice's Gray version, you have to, get their streaming service. So that's a little bit of a fair, we'll give you the physical copy, but if you want this version, you got to subscribe. Like, that's I can respect that. That's okay. And but it probably ultimately is more just less to manufacture than too.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like I'm not bothered by the fact that there's no black and white cut in the box. Like I'm not gonna watch it anyway. It's it's not a big deal to me. Um, but I do agree that it's like in this age of streaming, it's actually just kind of a little bit of a mini miracle, I guess, that it even exists in physical form. Uh,
Hmm.
because these days that's actually kind of a problem with a lot of streaming services, especially a lot of that Netflix stuff never finds its way to any disc format,
Yeah.
which kind of sucks for people like Brad and I who enjoy actually gobbling this shit up. But I guess it does have the Warner Brothers DC like IP behind it, so it's like it would make sense to publish discs of it. It's just you never know. Like you never know that it even something as big as a Justice League movie, like a secondary cut of it, if we're being honest,
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me actually if they just never bothered. So it occupies space on my shelf largely as a novelty. It's not like I have any particular attachment to it. I think it's okay. Um, but it's just kind of fascinating that it exists, um,
Yeah.
especially in the form that it does, where it's like this had quite a lot of effort and more importantly, money thrown at it. It's very, very expensive second chance for an already not very good film. It's like very unlikely. It never would. I really didn't believe it was going to happen until it did. If I'm being
Hmm.
honest.
Yeah. I never thought it would happen. But those I mean, what was it? I think it was Zach's. I can't remember if it was Justice League or if it was Army of the Dead, but one of those movies did win the audience voted Oscar for greatest movie moment of the year or something. I can't
It
remember,
was
but
it was this one. It was
yeah,
Justice League. It
um,
was the fucking Flash sequence.
just amazing that, like, never underestimate the Snyder Bros, I guess, because like just so
I will
great.
never understand like what the attachment is. Like from
Mhm.
an aesthetic standpoint, I think it's hideous in a lot of ways. Like his style is it is his style, but it's like man, like I must just be wired really differently from some of the people out there because like I look at it and I'm like it's all right, like it's distinct, but it's not anything that I would like form any sort of attachment to. It's like everything's kind of bronzed and yeah, that's kind of it. And everything ramps constantly. It's like everything gotta be fast and then it's gotta be slow and then it's gotta be fast again. Make it more bronze, more abs. Damn it. Army of the Dead, by the way, that was an example of giving someone maybe a little bit too much creative control over something.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
was a fucking mess. I didn't bother watching the follow up to it. Did you?
No, I never got around to that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that even happened.
Yeah.
It's I don't even remember the title, but it's about like a bank heist or something. It's about the German guy who was like one of the least interesting characters in that first movie that didn't exactly have interesting characters. Yeah, that happened. And now I guess his next thing is it's called like Rebel Moon or something. I've seen some like production art of it, but it's I guess
Yeah.
he's got something cooking at the moment
It's
that all
another
the
Netflix
Snyder Bros
movie, I
are really
think,
hyped
right?
about, and I'm just like, what is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. It's another Netflix movie, I think, right? I'm pretty sure.
uh, Probably. I don't
Yeah.
actually know, but like the production art I saw, I was like, is this like a secret like Red Faction movie? Like, do you know Red Faction, Brad?
I don't think so.
Okay, maybe I'm showing my age, but Red Faction was a it was like a first generation PlayStation 2 game where the whole gimmick was that it's basically Total Recall. It's like about a miner revolt, not young people, like coal miner on Mars against like a big corporation, and the whole gimmick to the gameplay was it was called geomod technology, and you could use explosives to alter the terrain. So like if people are like crossing a bridge, you could blow up the bridge, or like if there's a door that you were too dumb to find the key for, you could blow a hole through the wall. Anyway, they made a whole bunch of those games. Like looking at the production art, I was like, is this like it's like a Red Faction game or something? It's like I'm calling it now, Brad. I think we're at the precipice of the age of the Space Marine film, where that's going to be the thing that they're throwing that Hollywood is throwing at us relentlessly for the next several
Yeah?
years. Yeah,
Inspired by something or just, you have a feeling?
I mean, I'm speaking chiefly from an American perspective, in case listeners or viewers couldn't tell from the dialect, but uh, I don't know that just like the overall vibe is it's a little aggressive. There like from a political standpoint, there's a lot of chest pounding going on right now. When Henry Cavill is I mean, Henry Cavill, the mascot of the Snyderverse, he's ousted from The Witcher and is now talking about doing a Warhammer movie. Like when I think about like I don't know if he's doing a Warhammer like medieval or 40K, but if he's doing a 40K movie, it's like when I think about what the story behind all that shit is, it's just like, oh, so it's just big old space war, huh? It's like, okay. It's just existence is war. And so I'm thinking maybe we're gonna see like another Starship Troopers movie, like an unironic Starship Troopers movie or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Probably a Warhammer movie, and now this Rebel Moon movie. I'm picturing a lot of guys with spacesuits and rifles. That's what I'm picturing for the next several years.
We had, Moonfall last year. That was kinda in that zone a little bit. Roland Emmerich's Moonfall.
Yeah, and in China they had the Wandering Earth 2, which I
Mhm.
think was also like $1 billion movie. The first one I've heard actually those movies are good, and they're not like Space Marine movies. They're actually like hard sci-fi movies. I've heard they're very good, but they made a fuck ton of money. Anyway, I'm talking directly out my ass about nothing in particular, so I think it's time to move on. So, Brad, what is your next black and white pick here?
Well, let's go with since you went with one that's, like a modern day black and white or gray, I'll go with something certainly not modern day anymore, but, something that at one time it was modern day and it was black and white by, that was a choice. And it is Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein. Young Frankenstein by Mel Brooks. Of course, here it's all colorful, but of course it's black and white as a reference to Frankenstein. And I think I would say this is probably my favorite Mel Brooks movie. I don't know if I would say it's his funniest, but it's kind of just the one that I think it works the best. Like I feel like it's not trying to be quite as gag a minute as some of his other stuff, so there's a lot less misses. But I, being kind of a horror guy, I like being in that genre more than, like, for example, like Blazing Saddles. I think a lot of people would point to that as their favorite Mel Brooks movie. I'm not like the biggest Western guy, so I don't really get much out of it besides the humor, which is, it's got its funny moments, but it's nothing that blows me away. Um, but no, I generally like Mel Brooks's stuff. There's some of his stuff I haven't seen, but yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites. Great cast, and I've honestly, I think I have seen it more. I'm almost positive I've seen it more times than the actual um, Frankenstein film. So going back and watching the original now, it just feels very strange because it's like this was obviously referencing that movie, but now I'm experiencing the original movie through the eyes of having watched Young Frankenstein a million times. But it is a definitely a film I grew up with, and I like it quite a lot.
Yeah, like you, my I probably have seen Young Frankenstein infinitely more than I have the actual Boris Karloff Frankenstein,
Hmm.
and I most certainly saw Young Frankenstein first. When I was a kid, I really did like a lot of Mel Brooks films. Actually, that was not in the regular rotation for me. Blazing Saddles was, along with Spaceballs.
Yep, yep.
I watched the hell out of both of those. Love them. Mel Brooks generally works for me. He's also one of those directors that I would love to actually just watch everything he did. His filmography is not as dense as some of the other people we've mentioned today, um, but he is beloved for a reason. And actually, whenever I think of comedy and the style of comedy films in particular that I miss, he's always who I have in the back of my head, even if I don't directly cite him. I miss just the silliness of his movies, and the quickness, like the simultaneous outright dumbness, but also quickness in the writing. Um,
Yeah.
Mel Brooks is fucking great, and he has like a Hulu film coming out soon, right?
Yeah, I think it's a show actually.
Oh, okay,
But I don't think he directed it. I don't
okay.
f I think I'm sure he produced it or whatever, and I don't know if you saw the trailer. He introduces the trailer. But I will say watch the trailer and
Yeah, I'm not excited. I'm actually worried where it's like, man, you
yeah.
you if you had walked away with Curb Your Enthusiasm with that producer's season, like you
Mhm.
would have been on top of the world, man. Like I'm not impressed with the very little that I've seen from it's like History of the World Part 2 or something.
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't change the fact that it's like I'm just glad that we still have him.
Oh, yeah.
I actually have on my reading list. I think it's called All About Me. It's his biography, I think.
Yeah.
Um, I would love to read that, just because he seems like a very interesting fella, and his films, just his style is it's so much his own, and God damn it, I miss it. Like I don't want like a shitty parody of it to come back. I just want to live in those movies, like if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like, it just feels like, again, this is just based on the trailer, but the Hulu series, it doesn't have the same feel. It's just like, yeah, it feels like a copy of a copy of a copy kinda thing. And also, I don't know, I'm kinda like, I don't like that, one of the best things about History of the World Part 1 is that there's no sequel. Like, I remember watching History of the World Part 1 with some friends back when we were probably like 10 or 11 or something, and, just dying laughing, "Oh, yeah," and then, I remember the movie ended and we were like, "Alright, now we gotta go find part 2 at the video store," and, like, not, being at an age where back in the day, like, there was internet, but it wasn't like we looked everything up. Like, we just assumed there was a part 2, we had the first one. I think it was like an older brother's VHS or something. We just were like, "Oh, there's gotta be a part 2." And then finding out there wasn't, and then that is half the joke is that they called it part 1. Um, so yeah, it feels a little gross to me. I mean,
Yeah, I do actually like that gag. Like it's not up to us anymore, but that is a fun gag where it's like even the title of the film has a jokey quality to it, where
mhm,
it's like there is no part 2. Fuck off. It's like there's
yeah,
never going to be a part 2. Fuck off. Actually, it's like Leonard Part 6 if you've ever
yeah,
heard of that movie.
yeah,
Fuck, that movie's terrible. But at least they have one decent gag that they go to great lengths to over explain throughout the film. But uh, um, yeah, I I would actually love to go back and rewatch Young Frankenstein. It has so many good gags. And Gene Wilder is always, he's just amazing in pretty much
mhm,
everything he does, and that movie is no exception. Um, yeah, I I don't know how many times I've seen that one, but I do know that that was also like a strong recommend from my dad when I was a kid. It's just we didn't have it, so I'd never had as many opportunities to watch it. But now that it's like in my mind, I'm like, I gotta get the girlfriend up to speed with Mel Brooks because I don't even think she's seen one of his films. It's like, where do
oh
you
wow,
start with
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if my girlfriend's seen any either, but I just wanted to point out last thing, going back, looking on IMDb, now maybe one of these years is like maybe one was, like, premiered at a film festival, I don't know, but listed as Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein came out in the same year. I
Big
mean,
fucking
talk
year.
talk about a big, like, that's up there with Jim Carrey's 94. Like, that's like to have those 2 movies, which a lot of people would probably put up there in some of the greatest comedies of all time, both in the same year. That's a pretty big accomplishment.
That's quite the achievement. Holy shit! I didn't know
Yeah.
those dropped the same year.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is that the I don't know what it is. Like maybe it's the lighting and the cinematography, or the fact that there's so many like stunt casted celebrities in the trailer for the History of the World Part 2. I was getting like epic movie vibes from it in like the
Mhm.
worst way. Where it's like it didn't help too that a lot of times I was seeing these ads like muted because I was seeing them on like a Twitter feed or something. So I'm just seeing this parade of cameos and I'm just like I'm half expecting Rachel Dratch or whatever just step out and go, "I'm Harry Potter" or
Yeah.
something. It's like, God damn it! Are we doing this shit again?
Yeah.
Is it the 20-year rule kicking into effect?
It
Like, are
might
we back?
be.
Are we back at parody movies? Fuck.
Yeah, I don't know. Not that I mean, a good parody movie I enjoy, but they're just seldom done right. So I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, no, just so we're clear, like there's nothing wrong with a parody film. I mean, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, the Space Vault, all that stuff. There's there's good examples and then there's bad examples, and we were inundated with bad ones through a lot of the 2000s. Um, so anyway, I suppose the pick is to me. Good pick, by the way. Any excuse to talk about Mel Brooks. So what are we doing? I have an obvious pick that does kind of complement that one. But I'm not going to do that because I've talked about it too many fucking times on this show.
Mhm.
So I think Brad probably knows what I'm referencing here. If not, he can probably figure it out. So I'm going to pick a film here that also, um, due to the time of its release and the technology of the day, absolutely did not have to be in black and white. But it was a directorial choice, and it was an excellent one. I have here the 4K version of Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull. That's Bobby D on the cover there. Robert De Niro as Jake LaMotta. Um, yeah, I picked this up ASAP when it came out on 4K because this is a fantastic film. If memory serves, it came out in 1980 and sometimes is cited by folks as being like the movie of the decade. So it's saying quite a lot when you're probably publishing that article at the end of the decade, and this came out 10 years earlier. It says a lot that the person writing that article retained memory of it. But this is a fantastic film, but it's also kind of a hard watch. I don't imagine a lot of people can digest this film as easily as I do. I'm a fucking weirdo, Brad. I laugh at some of the most inappropriate shit. There's a lot of really intense scenes in this movie that for some reason it's I don't know if it's like a nervous response or something or like a childhood trauma coming out, but like I'll just go it's like Trevor, that is not funny. Don't do that. And it's like it's funny to me. It's like
I
you
see
don't
what you mean.
understand.
I see what you mean if we're thinking of some of the same moments.
Yeah, I think you know. I think you know what I mean. But this is a very 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 intense film. It also deals with the sport of boxing, which it's kind of funny how things work out. Where it's like I'm a fan of the sport in general, but perhaps more importantly the history of the sport. Um, and yet this is a movie that probably you could excise pretty much all of the boxing aspect of it, and it would still I would still highly regard it because it's primarily a drama, most of which takes place outside of the ring. Um, but from a performance standpoint, Robert De Niro really does knock it out of the park. This is a very multi-dimensional performance, and also one of the most commonly cited examples of method acting, especially in 1980, where basically this was the role where Robert De Niro gained a fuck ton of weight, but also got in crazy good shape, training up for the boxing sequences. So it's very well remembered in film history because of that. It's also one of the earliest roles for Joe Pesci, I think, if not his first film role. Um, Killer debut, if that was in fact true. He really kills it. He makes an impression, and I couldn't really think of anyone else who could stand opposite De Niro in some of the scenes for this, and make them sing to the same degree that he makes them. Yeah, Raging Bull is fantastic. It is intense. It's not a movie I could recommend to everyone, but for me, it's like this is fucking cinema, man. Like, this is a great ass film that also happens to deal with subject matters and yeah, subject matters that actually I find personally very interesting. Like chief among them, the sport of boxing, the people who gravitate to the sport of boxing, violence and masculinity. It's meditations on what it means to be a man, are thought provoking and very 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 intense at times. Like I can't emphasize that enough. It goes deep.
Yeah, Scorsese does not miss, especially, at that point in his career, and I forgot I have that one. I forgot I had that. I didn't pull that off the shelf.
Oh,
I haven't watched the Criterion yet. It's actually I have seen the film. I've only seen it once, and it's been a while. That is one I definitely do need to revisit because I remember thinking it was great, but yeah, I know like a lot of people say it is one of the greats. Not only is it great, it is one of the greats. But yeah, I mean it's an amazing film, and I'm assuming the Criterion 4K looks phenomenal.
it does. Um, it They did a fantastic job with it. It is a black and white film, but it loses nothing in the translation. Like the inky blackness of a lot of the shots is really incredible. As is like they apply like a hazy kind of like smoky effect, especially in a lot of the boxing sequences in the film.
Hmm.
And it has almost like a Lynchian, like almost like Eraserhead kind of vibe in some of the sequences where it seems like they're deliberately trying to like portray the being in the ring as like being in a circle of hell or
Yeah,
something. And it comes across as almost impressionistic at times. In fact, it was really interesting. Like I a long time ago, not on this disc, but like a DVD that I had many many years ago. I remember watching some of the featurettes, and I remember it was really fascinating to hear Scorsese talk about the film, because if memory serves, like he didn't like the book, that a lot of the stories are pulled from. I mean, it's a real story, like it's based on real people, but there is a book, I believe, titled Raging Bull, I think penned by LaMotta and probably somebody helping him as well. But I seem to remember he like didn't care much for the book, but more importantly, he doesn't like boxing. Like he
Mhm.
has no appreciation for boxing. And I was like, really? But then I thought about it a little bit more, and it's like, maybe that's part of why this movie's so special is because he doesn't approach it from a spectacle standpoint. He's like, this is barbaric. I fucking
Yeah.
hate this. Like, this is
Yeah.
not fun. This is something that crazy people do. like as opposed to someone like Sylvester Stallone directing a Rocky movie or something where it's a different perspective on things, where it's like it's an opportunity for glory and accomplishment, whereas Scorsese's view, and the life story of Jake LaMotta is just a fucking horror story, where it's like this guy, it almost seems like he's masochistic to some degree, where it's like he's such a monster outside of the ring, but he never takes accountability for any of his antics. And I guess the way that it's almost like self-flagellation or something, where he's like, I gotta take my lick somewhere. I guess I'll just let this guy hit me.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like I'm not gonna just let him. But if I get my face pounded in, yeah, it's part of the job. Occupational hazard. Um, so from a filmmaking standpoint, the way he shoots and edits a lot of the boxing sequences is really interesting. Where it does, I use the word impressionistic. It does kind of have that vibe to it, where it's not meant to be taken in as like a cohesive action spectacle or something, where like each shot flows cleanly into the next, and like each beat in the choreography, it's not dance like, it's almost staccato in how the images are thrown at you. It's a very interesting take on things. It does have an ethereal kind of like otherworldly vibe to it that is somewhat unique in the genre.
Yeah, just it in terms of just like it being also a really interesting character study of this guy. And yeah, I guess I don't know if I knew that about Scorsese not liking boxing, but that makes total sense when you watch the film.
Yeah, I was shocked by that, because I would have assumed, especially just from his age range and where he grew up, it's like, it's probably kind of a popular thing, but I guess like no, he just never had much appreciation for it, and I do think it translates to the end product pretty well.
Mhm. Yeah. Might need to do a might need to do a full Scorsese deep dive this year to get prepped for Killers of the Flower Moon or Killer of the Flowers Moon or whatever it's called.
I think he had it right the first time, but
I think so,
when is
yeah.
that scheduled to drop?
I don't know actually. Yeah, but it is on track for this year for sure.
Yeah, I know that much, but I have no idea what time of year. But um man, I wonder how many titles he has under his belt.
He's got a handful. I'm sure he's got
He's got a few. He's got a
a
few. He's pretty prolific, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you would include it, but like he's also done those music documentaries and whatnot as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've got, what is it? The Last Waltz, I've got that Criterion 4K as well. Is that black and white, I wanna say, or is that, that might be,
Mm,
like, almost, like, sepia toned or
I
something, or
can't remember. Sorry.
yeah. I've never seen it, so I don't know, but um, but yeah, yeah, so good stuff,
Okay.
good pick, real good pick.
Thanks, man. That being said, I think that's enough for Raging Bull. Throw it over to you again, Brad. What is your next grayscale pick?
Well, okay, you kind of actually already mentioned, one of these, and I'll just burn through this one. I won't go too into detail with it. But I have two films from the same director. The first one that you did mention, I have Eraserhead, the David Lynch movie. I'm sure I've talked about both of these, so I won't go too in depth. But I love David Lynch. I think if I had to pick one filmmaker to say like that is my favorite filmmaker, it'd be David Lynch. Eraserhead, his debut movie, is amazing, like so good. But I won't go too into that one, because I'll mention The Elephant Man, which these are both Criterion picks. The Elephant Man, both happen to be in my Criterion section right next to each other on the shelf, so I had to grab both. The Elephant Man, it was his follow up to Eraserhead. And Eraserhead, very, experimental, very surreal. Not really any sort of plot to it. It was kind of like, like a cult movie, a midnight cult movie. This movie was clearly much more of a kind of I think it was, I don't know what studio made it, but it's a Paramount Pictures movie, or at least they distributed it or whatever. So it was a bit of a bigger film for him. He had some stars in here, Anthony Hopkins, of course, John Hurt. Um, and you could say it was like it could have been to take a word to take a word out of Jake LaMotta, is that his name? His mouth. It could have been a contender. It could have been an awards contender. You know what I'm saying? It could have been that kind of film, and I do believe it was nominated for quite a few Oscars. But the way that Lynch makes the film, it is much more stylized, and it truly does feel like a David Lynch movie. What could have been just like, your, paint by numbers, Oscar bait kind of biopic, he 100% makes his own, partly because of the visuals, the black and white visuals, which are great. But of course, the opening and closing sequence, the surreal, dreamlike sequence, which kind of frames in everything in the film, is pure David Lynch. But I recently read something on Twitter, and it kind of expresses something about Lynch's films that I've felt that I haven't really been able to put into words exactly. In that, yes, everyone's like, "Oh, David Lynch, he's the weird director, he's the weird guy." But somebody posted on Twitter, I saw a tweet. They said, "Yes, David Lynch's films are weird, but the only reason they work is because they show us the humanity, or the real people, the real world, the human core that grounds all the weirdness." Like, you can have a film that's just total weirdness, and you know, they're just like, okay, yeah, whatever. But his films have that grounding of character and emotion, and they're never really weird for weirdness sake. And this might be the best example of that, in that it is a deeply human film. Like, and for a weird director, I don't think anybody could have made a movie about John Merrick, I believe is his name. That's quite as moving. Like, it really, it works very well. It's very emotional.
Yeah, that's very high on my list of movies of his that I need to check out. Because I do know, as far as like mainstream success and appeal, that is very high on his list. It's like one of his more approachable films, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, like across a stellar filmography, it's just like, it's maybe not the most representative of the overall body of work, but it is, it's a softball. It's like it's a baby bouncy. You can get this one out of the park, trust me. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, I've wanted to see that for a very very long time, and yeah, I as much as I am a novice when it comes to David Lynch, um, what you had said, you read off of the Twitter, that does seem to be very very true.
Yeah.
I actually am more familiar with interviews with the man than I am with his films, because I find him endlessly fascinating, even if I haven't seen that many of his movies. I did actually watch that documentary, um, just about him. That's the framing device of it is just him painting with like his daughter in a
I've wanted to
studio.
watch that. Is it good?
It is. It's not like super like revelatory or anything. He always has that kind of odd quality to him that's like, you could interview him for 30 days straight and you probably still wouldn't know him very well. Like he always seems like there's a barrier, or like a buffer between like interviewer and subject or something. He's mysterious in that way. He's enigmatic. Um, but that's part of what makes him so fascinating. But he does share like stories from growing up, and a common theme, I could be talking out my ass, but something I picked up on is that like a fairly common theme in his youth anyway was that like mundanity and just either violence or absurdity were always like rubbing right up against each other, where it's
Mhm.
just like he had a basic boring ass existence in the suburbs, and then oh yeah, some lady got like clobbered by a car right in front of him or something. It's just like, yeah, stuff like that happens, or like, yeah, some guy ran out into the front lawn and was like beating his kids in front of me. It happens. And then like months go by or years go by where you just riding your bike around the suburbs. Yeah, we watched a lot of TV. Oh yeah, and then some guy beat his wife in front of me or something like that. And I want to say that like that stuff like that kind of rhythm to his life, probably served as like the canvas for the way his art plays out. Or I forget what movie it is, but maybe it was like Blue Velvet or something. You would know, but basically there's that iconic shot where we go from the suburbs and we descend under the ground and we see like insects and earthworms and stuff writhing around.
Yeah, it's Blue Velvet.
Yeah, I know things. See, I
Yeah.
know some things, but I feel like that's what I think of. Even if I couldn't say that that extends to every film he makes, I feel like that's what I carry with me going into a lot of his films. It's like there's going to be a lot of very familiar images, especially kind of like a semi-retro aesthetic, like probably pulled from his youth or something that is just crystallized in his mind as being, I don't know if it's idyllic or if it's just something he likes from a style standpoint, like from an aesthetic standpoint. But there's going to be a lot of that. But like peel like one layer of the surface off, and it's going to get really fucking weird. Or it's going
Mhm.
to get really fucking loud and really fucking weird. It's just over there. It's just in the periphery.
Yeah.
That's always what I think of when I think of him.
Yeah. I mean, just look at the fact that um he says he made the movie The Straight Story for Disney, about a man who rides a lawnmower, true story about a man who drives a lawnmower across the country to go see his sick brother. And it's his like just most straightforward kind of movie. Maybe besides The Elephant Man, but it's just a straightforward movie. It's not very plot heavy, but just the fact that David Lynch he's called that movie his most experimental film. So which I love. I love that. Um but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, with any filmmaker, there's a lot of reoccurring themes in his work. But yeah, that idea of the normalcy of the suburbs or society and the dark layer beneath, that is something that is in maybe nearly all of his work at some level.
Yeah, I mean, just as an outside observer who hasn't watched that many of his movies, that was the thing that jumped out at me. But I would recommend that documentary. By the way,
Yeah, it's
it
one I've
was
been wanting to watch for a while.
it was just a nice watch. Like I said, it's not gonna teach you a whole lot about the man, but you will get to see a lot of his mixed media art, and you just get to hang out with him for a while. And like I said, I enjoy just listening to him talk because I find it very interesting. He has the most unique of perspectives. Like I said, I don't think myself or many other people would probably ever be able to actually understand the man. But sometimes you don't have to. It's just like take it
There's the
in.
man himself, man of the hour, right there. um, but
It's
yeah,
looking pretty sharp there, actually.
he always looks great.
I'm always jealous of his hair, man. Like
I know.
it's kind of amazing, actually. That coif, it's just well preserved. He
Yep.
just retained it all these years. It just
Yeah.
looks fucking great. Yeah, I really need to check that one out though. I've heard it's very very good. I know it was very popular when it came out. As far as time frame goes, like so that came out immediately after Eraserhead. Like that was his very next project.
I do believe so. Yeah, this was Eraserhead was 77 and Elephant Man was 80.
So where does Dune reside in his filmography?
I think Dune was directly after Elephant Man, so it was I want to say that was 84 maybe.
Yeah,
Um
without actually checking that, that adds up. Where it's like he
yeah.
has the art house hit, he has the mainstream hit, and then he has the big mainstream flop.
Yep. Yep.
It's unfortunate. Unfortunate.
Yeah. He bounced back though cuz I think Blue Velvet was next, I think. So, and I think he
Yeah.
got an Oscar nomination for that one again, so he's doing
No,
fine.
No, he's doing great. In fact, I think like as upset as he was with the making of Dune in particular, um, I think he's often said that it wasn't for him to begin with. Where it's just like that was his one shot at like doing a big a big Hollywood extravaganza film, and it's just like, you know what, I did it, and now I know it's not for me. So I'm just gonna go do my mini DV cams with Laura Dern in the woods now.
Yep. Yep.
And it's worked out. He's doing just fine.
Yeah.
All right. So we got the Elephant Man from David Lynch. Um, what am I gonna do here? Uh, it's gonna be a weird one. Uh, sorry, Brad. Probably not. Probably gonna be a one-sided conversation, but I'll get through it quick if I can. I have here the 30th anniversary edition. Huh, didn't know that. Um, on Blu-ray from Media Blasters. I have here Zeiram from director Keita Amemiya, who is a Japanese filmmaker who I often think of primarily as being a like a production designer or an artist rather than a filmmaker. Um, but he's kind of special to me because his style, his aesthetic sensibilities really work for me. His he has kind of a almost like Giger esque like biotechnological vibe to a lot of his design work. But more than that, he works a lot with sumie, so like brush ink, and his style often combines like fantastical ancient Japanese design work with futuristic technological design work. So you get this fusion that it's stunningly cohesive as all over the place as that sounds. Like he really puts it together in a really beautiful way. And I could just look at his designs all day long. But the one thing that has always jumped out about me is that he has worked primarily in the field of live action film, and yet when you look at his design work, it seems like wouldn't this be like more economical and probably more flexible and easier to work with in animation? And he has worked in animation before, but very seldom actually. And I always thought it was really fascinating. That's like his chosen field seems to be the hard road, where it's like we don't have the money or the resources to do that though, buddy. And he's like, no, we're doing it live, damn it. And I've always found that really neat because a lot of his films, especially in the 90s, kind of have what I like to call a sci-fi via hot glue gun aesthetic to them, where it's just like I'm pretty sure I've seen those mechanical components like in my dad's truck or something back in the day, and some asshole in the prop department just hot glued it to something like a vacuum cleaner and said that'll work and we'll spray paint it and we're good to go. It's kind of like the Mystery Science Theater 3000 school of prop development. um but it's like very charming as a result, where it's like it has a slightly chintzy vibe to it, but actually makes it more charming. Anyway, as a filmmaker, I believe this was maybe his directorial debut, Zeiram. And this movie is very flawed, but also very entertaining. Um, Especially because it's one of those movies that wears its influences directly on its sleeve, like loudly and proudly. Like there are direct references to aliens in the form of someone arriving in a construction vehicle that is backlit almost identically to how the power loader was introduced in Aliens. Um, Also, some of the design work of the creatures and whatnot. The structure of it is very Terminator esque. But basically, the plot involves this woman here on the cover here, Iria, fighting this monster here that's kind of hard to see, Zeiram, the
I
title
looked up
character.
the monster while you were talking, and I gotta say, I am
Pretty
very much a
badass.
fan. I
Yeah.
like I really dig it.
Yeah. And also the John Carpenter's The Thing. was also a heavy influence on this as well. So the monster continually changes shape and transforms as the movie progresses, and it gets more and more absurd. This is one of those movies that's like it. It's really funny where it's almost like farcical at times, where it takes like a really something that starts out pretty simple, and then because of buffoonery and shenanigans, it just keeps getting out of hand and getting worse and worse and worse. And part of the gimmick of the movie is that this female character is very, very capable. She's like a space bounty hunter of sorts. Um, and she holds her own whenever she has to fight the monster, but unfortunately, due to like logistical issues, sometimes she's not around to fight the monster, so it falls to like just a couple of hapless Japanese electricians who just happen to be caught in the crossfire. It falls to them to just have to grapple with this monster without even really knowing what it is or how to fight it.
Yeah.
So it's like it bounces back and forth between this like action sci-fi like spectacle film to just a couple of fucking buffoons like getting up to like Abbott and Costello esque shenanigans. It almost has that like Abbott and Costello meet the Wolfman kind of
Okay.
vibe at times. So it's a surprisingly goofy movie, but really at the end of the day, the aesthetics are what sell it for me. I love looking at his designs. The soundtrack is actually really badass as well. I love the instrumentation in it. A lot of it is synth, but they also incorporate a lot of traditional Japanese instruments and cadences, and it combines beautifully. The opening title sequence in this is outstanding. Um, and from a special effects standpoint, it is of its time for sure. But they're very, very, very ambitious with some of the opticals and stuff that they try to incorporate in there. A lot of the uh, animatronic effects and puppetry are pretty good. Like some of them are pretty fucking hokey, but when it's good, it's great. When it's not, it's still charming anyway. But
Yeah.
there is a sequel to it as well as a OVA series and anime, like I think it's like 4 or 5 episodes or something, that incorporates a lot of the same characters and design work and stuff. But Keita Amemiya is one of those directors that he has gone on to bigger and better things. If you ask me, somewhat for the worse. He has a franchise right now called Garo that started out in like 2007, I think, and I gobbled it up. I watched every episode of it. It was fantastic, but I very foolishly approached it thinking it was going to be like a one and done. I didn't think of it as being the start of a juggernaut franchise. I underestimated the Japanese media companies because as soon as something catches on, it's like, nope, Pokemon forever, motherfucker. And yeah, that's exactly what happened to Gato. Is it started
Mm.
out, I liked it, and then they kept making it, and I was like, I don't have time for this. Like I'm enjoying it, but I just don't have the time to devote to this. So I watched like the first couple of series and like one of the TV specials, and I was just like, like, sorry, man. Especially when they changed over the special effects technology from Suitmation, from
Yeah.
Monster of the Week episodes where men in rubber monster costumes like beat the fuck out of each other. They changed the technology at some point, like in the 2010s or something, to full on CGI. As soon as they started doing that, I was like, okay, now you're actively pushing me away from this.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's time to call it good. But we'll always have Zayram, and actually, I've been wanting to review a lot of his films for catching up on cinema. He has some short films, like 45-minute films that uh, I don't think would be up Kyle's wheel. Like I don't think they'd be in Kyle's wheelhouse, but it's only 45 minutes, man. We can do that.
Power through that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, you can do that, right? No, so actually, I that's like a secret project I've been keeping in my back pocket for a while now, is to like devote a whole month to this guy just because I love looking at his designs. His movies may not be the best, but there's a charm to them that is unique. Um, Hokkaido or Hakkaida is a movie of his also that I would very much like to review. It's also fairly short. That also has beautiful designs. Anyway, I've been rambling for far too long. I'm done.
No, I mean, just yeah, based on the because this is all new information to me, but based on the based on the images I just looked up, and again, I haven't seen them in motion or anything, but some just in terms of the creature effects for that movie, I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is Kamen Rider Zo. I've mentioned Kamen Rider on the show before. In fact, keep an eye on the Blu-ray release calendar. Kamen Rider Black is coming out on Blu-ray soon. I'm
Oh, all
super
right.
fucking hyped for that. That's like, as far as Kamen Rider shows go, that's supposed to be like one of the very best. Um, Kamen Rider Zo is one of those 45-minute films. It was a direct to VHS movie at the time from the early 90s. From a plot structure standpoint, it is Terminator 2, like straight up. And it happened to come out like the year after Terminator 2, so they knew what they were doing. But I would actually really highly recommend that, just because you take all the charm of his designs and the special effects technology of the day, and you take like a limited Japanese production budget, but then you condense it into a 45-minute film, and what you have is just a parade of special effects, most of which are excellent. Whereas it's very much similar to like a Peter Jackson production, where it's like an every trick in the book kind of production, where it's like we have 45 minutes. No story that we tell with this is going to be super in depth or anything, but over the course of this 45-minute video, we're going to have suitmation, we're going to have opticals, we're going to have a stop motion sequence, just because we're going to have complex wire work, stunt work. We're going to have some pretty solid action choreography. It looks fantastic and also sounds fantastic. The composer of it is the same as a Kamen Rider Black. And I think, if memory serves, you can actually find that movie on YouTube for free. Like,
Okay.
actually uploaded to YouTube from Toei, from the production company. Um, that was probably my introduction to him, aside from maybe Zayram. But yeah, that one's a lot of fun. That's actually top of my list as far as things that I would want to review for the podcast someday.
Is this? I'm just looking at images. Is this movie black and white?
Zayram is not actually. This was one of my cheat picks, because the
Okay, maybe you are.
prologue.
Did you
I
explain this while I was looking at pictures?
No, I did not.
Okay, okay, okay.
You caught me, Brad. You caught me. So allow me to explain. So this is a cheat pick. Only the prologue, only the opening sequence of the movie is black and white. But actually, if you were to watch that sequence, Brad, you'd probably find a little bit of David Lynch in there, because the cinematography and the style of lighting in that opening sequence is very Eraserhead esque.
Ooh.
Very. It's only a couple minutes, but it's glorious. It's like murky black and white. Like it has a particular look to it. It has a lot of smoke and haze in there, a lot of inky blacks. But yeah, the whole movie though is not black and white. It's just the opening
Okay.
sequence.
All right. Makes sense then.
That's why we have Brad on the show. He's a stickler for the rules.
I was like, am I just looking at the wrong thing here? What's going on now?
It's like, yeah, you're looking at the Ted Turner cut of Zero. You're looking at the TBS cut of Zero.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, okay, well, anyway, that's enough out of me. You got one more pick in you, Brad?
Yeah, I can do one more. I guess I gotta go with this one. Because hang on. Well, I'll save those till the end. I'll save those to the end. I got two more that I would probably be better picks, but kind of already tangentially talked about them, so I won't go with that. But this one, I will mention a movie that I really like. Now, I guess I will say, from my understanding, I do believe this director has. I thought was canceled. I thought this director was canceled, but apparently not, because they do have a new movie coming out this year with like, this isn't some like, side, like, low grade, like like they got like a legit studio movie coming out this year. But anyway, just talking about the movie itself, I have the movie Nebraska, which is a uh modern day black and white film. Alexander Payne, who, I generally like his films. The movie coming out this year that he's doing is a sequel to Election. He's directing that apparently, or maybe it's coming out the year after. I don't know, but Nebraska, I think, is a great film, probably one of his better movies. And part of the reason I like it so much is because of Bruce Dern's performance. I think he is not only did it kind of uh, expose him to, like he kind of got a great resurgence after this. He did a bunch of Tarantino movies and stuff. Um, but he got Oscar nominated for this movie as a man who is growing older and losing his wits to a certain extent, and then Will Forte playing the son, who I really like their dynamic. I like just the dynamic of the entire family in this, and it really, and I've never been to Nebraska, but it feels pretty genuine. Like, it feels like it really captures that sort of, like, right in the middle of the country, nothing around you except farms, and obviously the idea of having it be black and white. In a modern day movie, it's always like, okay, well, what is the purpose of that? Like, it's obviously a choice. The idea of you're in the middle of a country that is just it's not literally gray, but it's just corn and just farmland, just crops for there's just no variety. It's all just the same, and that's what these people live with day after day. And also the idea of Bruce Dern as a character losing his memory, slowly fading, like his wits, and that kind of idea. So I think it's shooting it in black and white, I think, really works. And yeah, it's quite a funny film, very enjoyable. And it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I do remember liking it quite a bit when it came out that year. And I think I've watched it maybe once since on the Blu-ray. But yeah, when I was Googling modern day black and white movies, this was one of the ones that came up. So, and I do have this one.
I actually didn't know that that was shot in black and white.
Mhm.
Obviously, I haven't seen it, but I do remember when it came out. It got a lot of positive buzz. I heard a lot of very good things about it, and I really do like Bruce Dern. He's a very versatile performer. He's particularly good at being ornery.
Yeah. Yep.
I love it when he gets to be aggravated about whatever the fuck. So hopefully he does that in that. But um, yeah, actually, what you're saying about from a thematic standpoint, like why you would present that particular story in black and white, that all makes sense. Like that all
Mhm.
sounds perfectly justifiable, and it does sound like it plays into the narrative very well. I would very much like to watch that movie, like if only just to see Bruce Dern's performance of which I heard quite a lot of good about. But um, man, Brad, you're the expert at picking directors that I should know a fuck ton about, but I probably don't. So
Yeah.
I'm looking over Alexander Payne, who, as Brad said, apparently there's some reason for him potentially to be canceled. I'm not aware of that, so I'm not going to get into that.
Don't get into it. Do not get into it.
Yeah, we're not getting into that. We're not here for that. But I will say, like, I'm looking over his filmography right now. Um, Interesting writing credits. So credited as writer or co-writer on both Jurassic Park 3 and I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. But I can point to a couple of movies of his that I didn't know were his, that actually are kind of a big deal to me personally. Chief among which being About Schmidt. I thought About Schmidt was fantastic. I really really love that movie. I don't remember the circumstances that brought me to About Schmidt, but I did see it around the time it came out, so I was probably partway into high school when I saw that movie, and for whatever reason, I sat down and I took it in a couple of times. In fact, I really really enjoy that movie. I thought it had a lot of interesting things to say, and from a performance standpoint, there's a lot of really neat things going on there. Um, I have not seen Sideways, but my brother actually has been on my case forever to check that one out. Kyle as well, actually. Both of them have had quite a lot of good things to say about that one. Um, I know Election has a good reputation, but I don't know a whole lot about it. and I haven't had anybody directly recommend it to me, but you
Well, let
did.
me do that for you right now then. I would
Okay,
probably say that's my favorite of his films if I had to pick one.
okay,
Yeah.
duly noted. If you're going to check out a film from a potentially canceled director, make it Election.
Mhm. I have
Uh,
I don't think I've seen About Schmidt though, so that's one I need to check that out.
okay, well, I would recommend that one to you then. So I'll take your Election and give you back About Schmidt. Um, the Descendants, I remember seeing the premise of that and being puzzled. I'm not quite sure what to get from that, but Nebraska, obviously, I've heard very, very good things about. Downsizing. Am I wrong in thinking that nobody liked that one or nobody saw that one, Brad?
I did see it,
Okay.
but it wasn't very I didn't really like it, no. It was a weird it was a weird movie. It was yeah.
Yeah, I heard very little good about it. However, I think it gets retrospective brownie points now, this year specifically because Hong Chow is in it. And this year is kind of a big year for her.
Mhm.
Um, but at the time, I don't think like I'm sure people took notice of her performance, but I don't think she not a household name. But the like because of the whale, kind of a big deal now. Um, but yeah, interesting filmmaker. Like just looking at his body of work, not really sure. Like I'm trying my best to like come up with like a cohesive identity for his filmography, but when you have Jurassic Park 3, I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and Nebraska all
Those
on
are
the
the
same
those are the outliers. I mean, it's his all they're all just kind of like comedy dramas, I guess, if I had like they're all, different, but that's kind of the zone he works exclusively in. Um I mean, I guess I would say if anything, Election I would say is probably the only one that is like an outright comedy. Um and all the other ones are they have comedic elements in them, but I from what I can tell, they are also leaning a little bit into the dramatic side, where I think Election is pretty much straight comedy through and through.
Yeah, I mean, what I know about the vibe of Sideways, and having seen about Schmidt, it seems like primarily dramatic stories, but definitely tinged with a degree of comedy. Where it's like this
Mhm.
isn't a straightforward drama. This is a slightly heightened drama in the form of everybody being just a little bit goofier than actual people you meet in your daily life, but still readily identifiable as people that you meet in your daily life. Kind of similar to like a Mike Judge interpretation of your neighbors or something.
Yeah,
Where it's
yeah, a
just
little
like,
bit.
yeah, I've met those people. They weren't quite that
Mhm.
funny, but but I've met those people.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting pick. I have never forgotten about Nebraska. Like everything I heard about was good. So keep just add it to the pile of shit that Brad keeps throwing at me. Like things that I ought to watch instead of my endless list of Scott Adkins films.
the pile gets bigger and bigger.
Every fucking month, man. Every fucking month. Okay. Well, that's enough out of the potentially canceled director.
I didn't mean to lead with that, but I guess I was just like, well, maybe I
Well, that's part of existing on the internet, Brad, is sometimes you just got to be careful. And
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
it's just better to make it known that like I know this might set some people off. It's like we're not here to talk about that though. We're here to
yep,
talk about
yep.
something that guy made. It's like not the guy though. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I only have 3 picks left. So this is going to be my last formal pick, and then we'll move on to the speed round. But you know what? Fuck it. Like this isn't one that I guess I'm left with like a few titles here that I'm not super enthusiastic about, but fuck it. Okay, so I have here a 4K disc, a 4 disc 4K set, another one, Brad, uh, of James Mangold's Logan.
Ah,
Uh,
yes. Good
James
call.
Mangold, of course, being a director who also has something in the pipe in the form of the new Indiana Jones film. Uh, And the reason why this qualifies, and I will, disclose this at the top this time, so there's no fucking confusion, Brad. This also includes an additional disc that includes a cut of the film called Logan Noir, that I'm guessing is intended to like piggyback on the Mad Max Fury Road situation they had with the black and chrome edition of that film. As far as I know, this film, I don't think it was. I don't think it was filmed with the express intent of making a black and white film. I think it was just like a post processing thing that they did. But the story goes with George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road. The story goes that that was supposed to be a black and white film, and then obviously it wasn't released as a black and white film, but there is a home video release of it in black and white called the Black and Chrome Edition. If anybody wants to check that out, I haven't seen that one. Have you, Brad?
No, I've never watched it. Weird choice, I think, because I feel like the colors are part of the reason that I love Mad Max Fury Road so much.
That was my interpretation. It was like
Yeah,
I watched that film and then I read about that after the fact. I was like, really? Like
yeah.
the color palette of this film is part of what makes it so dynamic. Um, but then again, I haven't seen the black and white version of it. Maybe it does. Maybe it does have something going for it. I have heard that the Johnny Mnemonic black and white edition that came out like just last year or something. Apparently that actually works in its favor to some degree, despite how much how many splashes of color and neon are present in that film. Apparently, it does actually go with it pretty well. I have read that the intention with the finished product of that film, Johnny Mnemonic, was that it was intended to be referencing Shinya Tsukamoto, um, the Tetsuo, like the Iron Man and stuff. It was intending to like reference those Japanese kind of like cyberpunk live action films that were coming out in the late '80s, early '90s. I don't buy it really, like, but then again, I haven't seen the black and white edition of the film. That's just some blurb that I read somewhere. Anyway, this film, Logan, plays pretty well in black and white. Um, it helps that the movie itself has kind of a almost like a sepia tone throughout it. It's a lot of desert scenes. There's a lot of washed out colors for the most part, and it's also extremely bloody as well. And some of the nighttime scenes of violence in particular play pretty well in black and white, where it almost aids in the intensity of it just a little bit. Um, as far as I understand, the movie was not intended for black and white. It's just kind of a really neat little bonus. Like it's a whole extra disc. They didn't have to do that. So I appreciate it. But on the whole, I really enjoyed this film. I think it's kind of far and away the best Wolverine film. I mean, X Men Origins is fucking clown shoes, and then the Wolverine, also directed by James Mangold, is like it's like 2/3 or 3/4 of a good movie. And then it gets to that final act, and it's just like, what are we doing? Like, man, I Hugh Jackman and robots, man. Like, is there like a clause in his contract or something? It's like, if I do this movie, there's gonna be a fucking robot. It's like Real Steel and this around the same time. It's like, fuck, man. What? Like, why did the Silver Samurai have to be a guy in power armor? Why couldn't it just
Yeah.
be a guy in a suit of armor? And why did it have to be this big reveal? Like, the whole last act of that movie is a fucking mess. But the scene that happens like just before that with Hiroyuki Sanada, um, that sequence is like that could have been the whole movie. Like that, it could have just been a short film. I'm just glad we got that sequence because that is expertly done. They nailed that. Uh, they didn't nail everything in that movie, but they got it mostly right. But this one, I feel like they mostly get it right. It gets a little wonky from time to time, but you get some really stellar performances from both Hugh Jackman and uh, pretty much everybody involved. Boyd Holbrook, maybe not so much, but that accent, man, it gets him a lot of mileage. I'll just say that
Hmm.
much. um, but yeah, good pick, black and white. I'm about done with that one. Any thoughts on Logan, Brad?
No, I mean, yeah, I love the film. I've never watched the black and white version though. Yeah, something I'd consider doing maybe the next time I watched it. But yeah, good pick because I had thought I don't have the black and chrome edition, but thinking of other movies that came out with alternate cuts in black and white, I'm pretty sure The Mist. Uh, I don't think I have that on Blu-ray. Actually, I think I only have the DVD, but I'm pretty sure it also included a black and white version.
It did, yeah. Frank Darabont's The Mist also has a black and white cut. I haven't seen that, but I could see it playing really well because
Hmm.
it already has a 1950s like atomic age B movie kind of vibe to it. And what's more, some of the special effects are not amazing in that movie, if we're being honest. And the black and white could I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but it could actually soften some of those rough edges.
It's been
Um,
a long time since I've seen it, but I think I do remember feeling that way. Um, but yeah, that's another one. I mean, it's kind of a cool if your movie can justify it. It's a cool extra little selling point for when you put it out on physical media. Because yeah, I mean, most of those movies, like obviously Logan wasn't planned to be in black and white. Like The Mist, I think he said his intention, he wanted it to be black and white, but he couldn't get it through the studio. So yeah, cool to have it both ways, on disc at least.
yeah, actually, that's a movie that I I would I probably should just own because I really do like that one.
Hmm.
Um, I was actually just talking about Stephen King movies the other day with the Movies for Life people. We talked about so many Stephen King movies, so it's funny. It's just on my mind, but that's one that I've always really enjoyed, and it would just be a nice excuse to check out the black and white version as well. But it's actually kind of funny that I'm kind of using my last pick here to highlight a bunch of like better movies that I don't own. That's like this exists. I don't have it, but it's out there because
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have Fury Road Black and Chrome. I don't have Giant Mnemonic in any capacity. But maybe someday.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, there's not a whole lot to be said about Logan other than it's good.
It's great.
uh,
I'd say great. It's great.
it's great. Yeah, folks at home, if you're not aware, that's basically Brad's catchphrase. It's a catch-all, in fact. Um,
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that concludes our picks for our glorious grayscale discussion here. But as is customary, we will proceed into what we call the speed round of the discussion, where basically we take any runner-up picks that we had, any titles that we set aside that we didn't take the opportunity to talk about at length. So, Brad, would you like me to go first? Do you need a minute, or do you want to jump right in?
I can just go right in right now. I didn't grab every single black and white movie off my shelf. I grabbed most of them, but I only have a couple more that I pulled out. I have Some Like It Hot, the Billy Wilder film. This is the Criterion Blu-ray, not the Kino 4K. I bit the bullet too early on this one, but great comedy. I Billy Wilder. Again, another director that I've seen a handful of his films, but I mean, the guy is just one of the best from back in the day. And that's one of my favorites of his for sure. And then the other two right here kind of go hand in hand, and we kind of tangentially talk about one of them. I have Frankenstein and Dracula. um, which there's an episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force where they go to visit the grave of Dracula, and they get these headphones to listen to about Dracula, and but the guy on the headphones, the tape, he says Dracula. So, but anyway,
I don't know why that's so funny. It just is.
this is the grave of Dracula. So, um, but yeah, these are classic monster movies. Frankenstein, really great. Dracula, I don't know. I really like Dracula and the story of Dracula. This version is not my favorite. I don't know. It's kind of slow. It just feels like, I mean, Bela Lugosi obviously is iconic, but it's not like that great of a film. Like it's still good, but I don't know. In terms of like the Universal monster movies, I would actually say, at least if we're talking like the originals, the main big ones, it's middle of the road for sure. It's not one of the best. But they're still both great. And I don't know when. I think these steelbooks came out long time ago. But they have this. They're kind of like the slipcover has the thing, sort of thing on it. But pretty cool. Pretty cool.
They, those actually look really cool. Like just
Yeah.
from a packaging standpoint, I really
Yeah,
like
they're not
the
bad.
red highlight and then the plastic slip cover.
Best thing about them actually too is the slipcover. When you take it off, you've got the image on the front there, but when you flip them over, just the titles on the back. That's nice. That
Very,
is
very classy.
it's a
Very
nice touch.
classy.
I like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've talked about it before, but does that include Spanish Dracula?
Does it? I'm trying to remember. I want to say it does. Yes, yep, Spanish version. Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I was told by my college professor back in the day that Spanish Dracula is where it's at, man. Like
That's
it,
right. I think you did tell me that. Yeah, I've never seen it, but
I haven't
yeah.
either, but I would be really interested to check that out because I think it says quite a lot that's included on that disc. Because
Mhm.
I do think it's a pretty widely known thing these days that Spanish Dracula pretty good.
Yeah.
The story goes like back in the day. I guess that's how they would do foreign language versions of films, like studio films, is they would just have the foreign crew and actors just reshoot the movie on the same sets. But they wouldn't do it like exactly the same. Like apparently some of the setups, like some of the camera setups and some of the lighting, like camera movements and whatnot, differed. And obviously from a performance standpoint, it's a different language with different actors, so it's kind of a different movie altogether. But I've always been told that Spanish Dracula, man, don't sleep on that.
Yeah, that'd be cool to check out.
Yeah, maybe next time you're due for a rewatch of the old Universal horror classics, maybe give that one a shot.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I only have two picks here, so this is going to be a very quick speed round. But I have here um, the movie that I decide not to talk about, being as I talk about it seemingly every time I talk with you, Brad. I have Tim Burton's Ed Wood on DVD. I don't actually have this on Blu-ray, but I adore this movie. It's kind of my go-to for if I'm needing creativity or inspiration of any kind. I actually finally got the girlfriend to check this out. She had never seen it before, but she knew it was a big deal to me. Not gonna lie, I probably had to cash in quite a lot of brownie points to get her to sit down to watch this one because it's like, so you mean you want me to watch a black and white movie about a bad filmmaker? What? It's like that's your idea of a date night? It's like,
Yeah.
yes, it is. So bear with me. But I love this movie. I could watch it every day and probably never get bored of it because endlessly quotable from all parties involved. Fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. Check it out. Definitely a movie that I should have in HD. Um, but I don't know. There's like a chunk of Tim Burton's filmography that hasn't been treated all that well in HD. Like Mars Attacks, I think exists on Blu-ray, not a good Blu-ray as far as I know, and same with Ed Wood, or it's on Blu-ray, but it's not like a Blu-ray anybody's especially happy with. So I'm like kind of foolishly holding out hope that maybe it'll get a update or something, like you'll get the premium treatment, but I don't think that's in the cards. But Edward Scissorhands also, that's one that, as successful as that movie was, I would have expected like super duper like 4K edition or something, but no, I don't know what it is about that chunk of Tim Burton's filmography, but it's not been handled all that well in physical media.
He's
Anyway,
burning too many bridges. He's every studio he leaves, he says, "I'm never working with them again. I'm never working with Disney again." Now he's on
well,
Netflix.
I know it's the speed round, but I'm going to take a pit stop real quick here to ask if you've watched the Wednesday show on the Netflix.
Yeah, I did. Eh, I mean, it's fine, but
Yeah, I haven't watched it, so I don't know.
knowing he directed it, like, come on, this is what you're
Yeah,
doing now. Like, ugh.
I'm foolishly holding on to hope, as I tend to do, that he'll come back, but I don't think so. I think I think he might be done.
He's
To use
done.
to use a quote from Brad's soundboard, "You're done."
You're done.
Yeah, I mean he was great, but he has not been great in quite some time, and that hurts, man. That kind of sucks because as soon as that man found color, I've always said that. As soon as his color palette shifted from monochrome, from grayscale to color, everything got shitty. Like just everything got shitty. I don't know what happened. Uh, I don't know. Maybe he got too comfortable or something. Because like a lot of his earlier movies involved very like outcast protagonists who were very horny. And I don't think
Mhm.
he does those movies anymore. It's like
No.
Tim Burton, are you getting too much at home? Like, are you getting? It's like, are you getting in your repetitions in the bedroom too regularly? Is that where your angst went? Did
Maybe. Or
someone
maybe
fix
he
you? Did some gal come around and fix you, Mister Burton?
he's just at an age where that's not on his mind anymore.
I think that might be the case. Like he needs to get on that. He needs to get on that TRT.
Yeah, yeah.
TRT Burton. Hashtag TRT Burton.
Yep.
We need Burton horny again. Make Burton horny again. That's how we'll get. That's how we'll get him back to himself. Damn it. Beetlejuice goes Hawaiian. We need it in 2024. Calling it now. I mean, Michael Keaton, he's going to be on top of the world with
Yeah, yeah.
that movie, that Flash movie featuring that other canceled person.
Yeah.
This always happens when we get to the end. It just gets totally unhinged. Okay, so my last pick here for this quote speed round is you knew it was going to happen eventually. Maybe your buddy Matt will appreciate this one. Ultra Q. So this is from Tsuburaya Productions. I think this may have been their first production. This is the TV show that predates Ultraman. This came out, I believe, a year or two before Ultraman, and it is fully in black and white, and is very much like the X Files. It's like the X Files and the Twilight Zone put together, kind of. So it's about like paranormal or supernatural or extraterrestrial investigators and journalists uh, dealing with monsters of the week, although there aren't always monsters. It's just like crazy, unexplainable phenomenon, oftentimes involving giant monsters. From the foremost expert of giant rubber monsters, Eiji Tsuburaya, who worked with Toho Studios to do the special effects for the original Godzilla films, but then parlayed his experience pioneering those special effects technologies into founding his own studio and making this show, which is delightful. It's not too long. It Beautiful special effects for the time for early 60s tech. And then probably most important thing is that it serves as the jumping off point for Ultraman. So this is like it's lumped in with Ultraman as like the prologue chapter to what would become the long lived franchise. But this is a very fun watch. Good nostalgia television watch. Um, so yeah, that's the box set from our our favorite distributor, Mill Creek Entertainment. But they did a bang up job with it. You know, it's a full box. It comes with a a little booklet that gives you a lot of insight into the production history and lots of details about the characters and all the monsters and stuff. They do good work when it comes to Ultraman. Not a whole lot
I
else.
I'm definitely intrigued when you said monster of the week kind of thing. Like,
Yeah,
I just looked and it is on Tubi, so I might have to. It's one season? It's a one
yeah.
season.
It's one season. They did like revivals of it in I think the 2000s or early 2010s, but the original version of it is just the one season.
Yeah, I might be checking this out. I might check this out. We'll see.
It's a lot of fun. It really is kind of like Twilight Zone or The Outer Limits, with a little bit of X Files in that. Like it has central protagonists who carry over from every episode, and
Mhm.
big rubber monsters. Like how could you go wrong?
Yeah, what's not to love?
Plus, Monster of the Week really works for me. Like I love just I love that format. Like that's actually part of what like Star Trek: The Next Generation, like that's part of what really worked for me personally, is the fact that you have these characters that you get to know, but unlike basic streaming stuff these days, it was monster of the week storytelling. They very seldom did two-parters, and I've personally, for me, that's a lot of fun because it doesn't ask that much of me. It's like I can just put it on. It's one adventure in 45 minutes, and we're good to go.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
I totally agree. I love those kind of shows.
Well, get in on Ultraman. You get to see some giant rubber monsters get blowed the fuck up every week. Every week, Brad.
I might
Every
have
week.
to.
Okay, well, I guess that concludes our glorious Grayscale discussion on this month's Tales from the Shelf. Just conclude things by saying thank you, Brad, for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and talk about our collections and whatnot.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks for having me.
yeah, man, you're always welcome. But it's way better than doing it by myself. But before we go, would you care to let our listeners and hopefully our viewers know where they can find you and your super awesome podcast?
Yeah, it's the Cinema Speak podcast. So we are on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at the Cinema Speak, on Instagram as Cinema Speak Podcast, on YouTube as Cinema Speak, and find us on the web at cinemaspeak.libsyn.com.
Okay, very well said. Speaking of the YouTube, I would be remiss if I didn't give you your monthly jab to ask about.
Yeah,
Do you got anything in the pipe, Mister Brad?
probably the same video that I told you about last month.
Well, that's why I give you a poke to give you
Yeah, yeah.
incentive to get that shit out.
Yeah, maybe I'll get editing it this week. This might be a good weekend for it. We'll see.
Okay, well, I'm not going to hold you to that, but I am eagerly anticipating whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for that. But as for myself and catching up on cinema, you can find all of our episodes collected on our website at catchinguponcinema.com. You can also find us on the social medias in the form of the Instagram at Catching Up on Cinema, as well as the Twitter at Catching Cinema. So feel free to hit me up at either of those. I will likely respond, but there is a chance I won't. And you can also find the podcast on pretty much every platform you can imagine, including Bitcade. So fucking Google it. And that being said, thank you so much for listening and or watching. And we'll catch you next time. And now's the part where we wave goodbye and I hit the end stream button. And hopefully this shit doesn't break.